Hello, everybody. Let me know if you can hear me in the chat. Give me a one if you can hear me okay. I just want to make sure there's no audio glitches. Yeah, thank you guys. Let me know if you can hear me. Great. Sweet, sweet. Welcome in. Welcome in. What we're going to talk about today is in the description of the video. It said, what is the Matrix and how do you escape it? When I talk about the Matrix, well, before I get into it, I just want to let's say hello to some peeps because we can kind of go fast and loose today and just have a discussion. So before I do that, I want to welcome in, lovely me. Good to see you. Karen Bell, good evening. My handler, happy Friday to my handler. Charlotte Turner, welcome. Thanks for coming. Burrow down Intel. Burrow down Intel. I like it. Hello. Moonchild. What's up? Brandy J. Okay. Yeah, it's Friday night. Friday nights, guys. We can get loose. Kick off the weekend. All right. Becca. Hello. Regina G. Hello to you. Thanks for showing up. 904 Bell. Welcome. Bristol 915. Hello. All right. P.I. Jane. Welcome. Thanks for coming. All right. Good. It's good to see some people here. Familiar names. All right, we can I'll start off. Tonight's not going to be that specific and detailed. It's just you guys know I talk a lot about the big picture and we've all heard about the Matrix and we all know the movie The Matrix. The way that I look at it is I kind of look at it like it's not so much a palpable thing. It's more of the overall collective unconscious that people are living in. So we have this illusion that we've all had our whole lives. You go to school, you're taught this is the way things are. This is how the world works. And then as you get older, you might start questioning things, but if you're in school or in a corporate environment, anything that brushes up against the power structure, which is virtually everything, unless you literally live off the grid and don't have any connection to the larger power structure. We are all tapped into it early in life, and you just follow that road, you follow that path, and you have to become aware of it first before you can start to break away from it. And in my opinion, awareness and an awakening, like I've talked about before, is the big overarching way to start the process. Because think about it, the power structure, the matrix, this illusion relies on us buying into it, right? And we all have to be a part of it to some degree, right? We have to work, we have to pay our bills unless we're independently extremely wealthy. But even the really wealthy people, they're part of it as well. And just like while I'm on that line of thinking, think about this. Elon Musk, he has most of his income comes from contracts that he has with the government and intelligence agencies. He relies on the large banking cartel to be where he is, to be in the position he's in, this high profile position of extreme wealth and influence. So even the people that are at really high levels in the world, financially and in the power structure, they're tapped into it also. So there's very few, if any, renegades that really blaze their own trail, because that is the system we are all forced into from a very young age. So I wanted to sort of talk about what things people can do to start, because I'm not in a position to just quit my job and live off the grid. It's largely our accepting the systems the way they are that create the system. If, for example, the political systems all around the world, they're typically divided into segments, and they keep us trapped in these systems. Like, midterms are coming up, you got to vote. And they start pushing a narrative that their quote unquote side will like right before midterms and elections. And it gets people to buy into the system. And that is one of the things that has perpetuated the system for a very, very long time. And I know that it's not something that can happen overnight, but the idea is awareness, because I believe even if the changes don't happen in our lifetime, just being aware is a big part of freeing yourself from it, being aware of it. And then you can start to perpetuate this idea of an awakening by your actions and by what you buy into and don't buy into. So, just some food for thought. I want to get people's take on that, because there are other things related to the quote unquote matrix that we don't even notice in our everyday lives. I'll give you an example of some shit that happened with me today. I had, we all have these online banking accounts, and my bank got absorbed by a larger bank. It got absorbed by PNC Bank. And they told me, oh, you don't have to really do much. All your accounts and your monthly scheduled payments will just transfer over. And then I go and try to log into my account online, and it's not showing that everything just transferred over the way they said. So I'm all stressed out. I have to sit down and go through all the accounts that I have recurring payments on to make sure that they go through when the next payment comes around. Well, we're all part of this banking, and they keep you locked into it. Like, we don't have it's like we don't really have a choice, right? There's no real community banks, because all the so-called community banks are typically owned by bigger banks. Most housing complexes are owned by banks. So everything we've done throughout our lives, any loans, any student loans, car loans, mortgages, we're all tapped into this larger system. They keep us trapped in this system. I want to see what you guys think about that. Yeah, here's a good one. I'm gonna tell you guys something that I've thought about a lot in the last few years. We're all tribal. All humans are. We're all tribal, and we all get locked into this tribalistic us versus them mentality, even if we don't invest a lot of emotion into it, we all do it, right? We all have our, and now I have come to a point where I don't buy into that this side versus that side nonsense anymore, because I believe it's all total theater, that all these people that we think are in positions of power, like I mentioned, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, you name it, you name the oligarchs, they are also prisoners. It's just that when you get to a high level of power and influence, you're protected. You're protected. I talked about this with Birdie on Wednesday night. When you get to this super high level, I don't believe those people are totally free. I think they are slaves to the much larger global power structure, but they are protected. So they do whatever needs to be done for the power structure, because they want to stay in that position of power and protection. Right. I agree, Burrow Down Intel, 100%. All right. You just brought up something that's going to let me address the main point of what I started this video discussing. By buying into that system, we are giving it power. Now, people think that's crazy. You have a right to vote, but our system's been completely corrupted. So if you're voting for basically the same perpetuation of fuckery that we've all had to deal with for most of our lives, you're giving it power. You're agreeing with it. And I don't think we can fix the situation that we're in. Brad Harris, welcome in, brother. Thanks for being here. All right. Kiss me where I pee. Welcome. I recognize you from Birdie Stream. So think about it. It's really us that give it the power. We've accepted this system that doesn't serve us. And how do we trigger it? It's I'm not saying it's easy, but it's only, in my opinion, it's only going to get worse. Things for us as citizens are not going to improve just because some politician comes out of nowhere and has this really revolutionary idea of how society needs to work and what needs to change. You can't get into that system unless you are controlled by it. They don't let real people with real ideas and integrity survive that system. I mean, like him or not, Thomas Massey was someone who actually stood up for his own values, whether you agree with his values or not. And look, they ousted him. Probably hundreds of millions of dollars to oust him. So, yeah, I mean, we are abused by the system, and it's gotten progressively worse. And I've talked about this before. The escalation of the power structures causing problems for citizens through corruption and money laundering, basically stealing from citizens and funneling our tax money into all these shell companies and these NGOs that don't do what they say their stated goal is. You can never trace where the money goes. It's a sham. It's a total sham. Now, this is the whole reason I started the idea of State of the Deep, is to get people to put their heads together, to come together and start to think of other ways. Because I got sick of hearing all these big content creators fomenting outrage in people versus this side or that side or the government or corruption, but they don't give any solutions. And I would say that for starters, we can't keep buying into this broken system. because we need to try different things. You might have to try a lot of different avenues to get some change for people, for regular people. It's not like we can come up with a fail-safe way to do it, but people have to be willing to try. And we have to start recognizing what happens is people get scared into doing a lot of things. Oh, if you don't vote for this candidate, the other side is going to take control and do all these really bad things. And that's how they manufacture consent. Because then what happens? You vote for one side or one team, and then they screw you. They just label it a different way, and they get you to go along with it because you perceive it as going against the other side. So you accept it. So anyway, I just feel like we need to start waking up, because I don't have the instant solution, but I know the way we've been going about it is not going to work. It's not. It doesn't matter how much they sell us on a new agenda or new ideas. It's not going to work, because the system has gotten to be so bad that I don't think we can change the current system. I just don't. And in my opinion, one starting point besides awareness is just not acknowledging the system. Discredit the system. Say, I'm not going to be a part of this system that abuses citizens. That's, in my opinion, that's the way it has to start. And people will be scared. What's going to happen? They'll get you all riled up. Oh, everything's going to collapse if we don't have people supporting the system. That's what they want you to believe. We need a tipping point. And if a say 3% of the population awakens, I think that's enough to make the beginnings, at least, of change. One other idea I want to throw out there now, and we'll talk about it, we'll discuss it later in the stream, is I remember, you guys may remember, I talked about the bystander effect, and I think that that is having a big picture impact on society, because we just feel like, well, there's got to be somebody else that's doing something about this. All the corruption, all the money laundering, all the stealing from the public. So it's like, well, it's so bad. There has to be people that are trying to change it, right? There's got to be somebody in government. There's got to be some wealthy person who knows what's going on. They've got to be doing something about it. Some decent person. If individuals, I believe, if you put it out there to the universe, and I know it sounds weird, our own ideas and our own good faith efforts expand. And then that brings me to two sayings that I've heard that I believe in. Has anybody ever read the book Way of the Peaceful Warrior? Give me a 1 in the chat if you've read Way of the Peaceful Warrior, or at least if you're familiar with it. It was made into a movie. I didn't think the movie was that great, but I think Nick Nolte was in it. But let me know if you guys are familiar with that book. Yeah, I agree, Burrow Down Intel. Those in power already know all of this, but they equally know that most of us will never take that next step to help ourselves because of the possible ramifications. Yeah, exactly. All right, so it doesn't look like many people are familiar with that book. It's an interesting book. It's kind of like taps in a little bit with the sort of Eastern philosophy a little bit. and it's kind of got a metaphysical kind of overarching theme to it. But in that book, one of the things that the author says is leap and the net will appear. And then there's another, if you've seen the movie Almost Famous, which I love that movie. If you guys have seen it, it's a pretty popular movie. There's that one scene when William Miller, the kid, his mother is on the phone with the rock star dude, uh, Russell Hammond, that character from the band Stillwater, and she says, "There's still hope for you. You can be a person of substance." And then she says, "Be bold, and mighty forces will come to your aid." Which I can't remember which philosopher said that. If anybody knows, posted it in the chat. But there's something to that. If you're bold and you have good intentions and you take a leap of faith, I believe that that expands, and that little thing can expand into a bigger thing. It's all about expanding your own intellectual capacity and spiritual capacity. What's up, Mary Holt? Welcome. I mean, I read a lot of books that I don't even remember, and then when something pops up and it triggers a memory, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that book. Basil King. I'm not sure. Is that a philosopher? I can't remember what she says it in the movie. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I believe that there is a woke up 1984. Welcome. Carl Jung's theory, the collective unconscious. I believe there's a collective consciousness too. I do believe that. We can't explain a lot of the things that we can't see, right? Because what is science based on? Observable facts, observable physical properties, of observable data. But there are things we can't see that we know exist because we feel them. They interact with our physical world. And I'm not religious, even though I was raised in a religious family, but I'm definitely spiritual, and I've felt the power of tapping into that. Let's see. Go at it boldly, and you'll find unexpected forces closing around you and coming to your aid. What's up, Brandon Rudder? Is that the full quote? Okay, so it's a paraphrase. Gotcha. Thank you for that, man. I appreciate it. I like it. Sweet Melissa. Melissa is one of my favorite Allman Brothers songs. Lulu, thanks for coming. Thanks for popping in. We'll see you soon. Take care. Let's see who we got in here. And I think my handler has got some potential poll ideas that we might throw up a little bit later. So I'm probably going to go till about 5:30. 5:30 my time, 5:45 my time. Let me see. All right. Yeah, I almost had the no sound issue again at the beginning of the stream, and I have no idea what is causing that. Let's see. Let's see what we've got in the chat. I think that, religion and spirituality are inherent parts of the human condition, and they've been around as far back as we have any history whatsoever. Spiritual, everything is spiritual, in my opinion. I agree with that. Well, Sweet Melissa, a lot of people think the name of the song is Sweet Melissa, but it's actually Melissa because the chorus of the song is Sweet Melissa, but the name of the song is just Melissa. Luna Bliss, what's up? Welcome. Thanks for popping in. Appreciate you guys. I appreciate the support too. All right, let's see what we got here. All of this to say the first step we need to take is to step into the unknown and face our fears before anything else can change. And I agree with that 100%. And this is very relevant to what the title of this stream is. How do we get stuck in the matrix? We get steered into it from an early age, and then that becomes our reality. And that's what we know. So it's very hard to question your own reality. There was a saying one of my professors in college used to say, and I don't know where it originates, but it's the last thing a fish knows about is water because they're in it. That's their reality. So they can't step outside of the water and understand it as a separate thing from themselves. All right, let's see who else we have here. All right, let's see. Yeah, please like and subscribe. And if you like any particular videos, please share them. And disclaimer, obviously, I'm just giving my opinions about things that I have strong opinions about. Let's see. It seems too personal. It is all in all the same from a science lens. Energy, religious, it's all the same thing. I tend to agree. I tend to equate spirituality with quantum physics. And there was a book, oh man, it was either a book or a documentary called it was either the spirit molecule or the God particle or something along those lines. And I think that energy is just a field that is everywhere, and that anything that exists in that field is connected to it. Let's see here. I'm just scanning the chat. Yeah, the trap of the grind, Brandy J. We all get, most people get stuck in the grind. I think about this. I wanted to throw this out there. If you think about, you've heard me talk a lot about elites, right? The elites, the power structure. Those people are basically segregated into these silos of people that are like them. They are raised in an environment where they're sheltered from quote unquote everyday life. They go to private schools, they're around the children of other elites. They get through their connections, they get these opportunities. In my opinion, very few of those types of people ever actually have close friends that are regular people. So when they are taught at a young age that they are the elites, they are the ones that are designated to rule over the peasants, the regular people. And that is really what I believe they think. I don't think they think a lot about it. I think that's literally just their reality. That is how, with all these secret societies that we all know about, these elite families that have been in positions of extreme wealth and power is for hundreds and hundreds of years, these elite bloodlines, it's a real thing. And I'm learning about that stuff more and more. I don't think those people have any everyday concerns. They never have to worry about financial insecurity. Their needs are always going to be taken care of. And they're always in a position of influence, even in their smaller circles. Anybody who's gone to, like, I didn't go to an Ivy League school, but I know people who did. Well, when you're in those schools, let me give you an example. When I was in college, I used to be commuting to and from work kind of far away from where I lived, and then I would have to go commute back home to go to class at night because there were some days I had to take night classes because of work. And I would listen to lectures while I was driving. And there was a professor from Yale, psychology professor. His name was Paul Bloom at Yale. And I'll never forget it. One of the things he talked about in a lecture, he said, the biggest thing that you will get out of going to Yale is not necessarily the education, it's the people that you will meet and the connections you will make. And if you really think about what that means, it's the same basic concept as like fraternities and sororities. People make connections through their Greek life and they get jobs from that after they graduate. They have a lot of social connections that they get through that. Well, now imagine you go to an elite Ivy League school. Now look at that same scenario, the type of connections that you're going to make. Right. It's all networking, Brandy J. I agree. Sorry, I just removed Brandy J. My handler is working behind the scenes to keep me in line. Money equals power, and it also equals protection, Regina. That's a big one because one of the things we've talked about in the past is once you get to a certain level of wealth and power, do you really need anything more? Well, they also get protection and influence over others, in my opinion. Let me see. What is it? Yeah, I think I found out my account is branded. Can't even get gifted memberships. I'm not there yet to monetize my channel. I have enough followers, but I have to have a certain amount of views. So I tried to activate it, but it's not ready to be activated yet. All right, Captain 11, welcome in. Welcome in. That's my other handler, guys, in case you didn't know. Captain 11. Captain 11, we're talking about elite power structures and how these people grow up in this sheltered environment only around people from their own class. So they never fully understand the everyday struggles that regular people have. And they certainly don't care about them. And how do we collectively start to detach from the matrix? And to restate what I said earlier, we buy into the matrix. We give it permission to rule us, basically. That's a kind of a it's a simple thing to say, but it's kind of a crazy idea. And once you have that awakening, and if enough people have it, that's how I think we start to change. Yeah, I mean, Leah Stories, welcome, welcome, good to see you. I agree. I think fraternities are like training wheels for secret societies. Enjoy the freedom of not being monetized whilst you still can, JJ. Ironically, you can say and do a lot more before you're monetized. I agree. But to be totally honest, I don't care I'm not going to change the way that I talk about things, not in any substantial way, because I'm worried about how it might affect making money. I'm just going to try to do the best that I can and keep talking about the things that I want to talk about, because I am a very strong believer in really absolute free speech, because there are crazy people in the world, there are mean people in the world, there are all kinds of people, but we all have to be intelligent and strong enough to not be affected by other people's words, whether we agree, whether it's offensive. We have to be able to accept ideas, because what's next? Thought police. We're already entering into that stage. But I get what you're saying, Burrow Down Intel. I know the point you were trying to make. Hey, Ireland. All right. Sharon Kingston. Welcome and greetings. Where in Ireland are you from? My grandparents are from Belfast. My old man's parents were from Belfast. Captain 11 says, yes, fraternity is training. I knew a lot of people that were in fraternities in college. I didn't join a fraternity because I was an athlete, and that's like your own separate fraternity. Let's see. I don't know how I became a conspiracy theorist. I just questioned a lot in my whole life. You and me both, Leah Stories. I want to tell you guys something crazy, an idea. A long time ago, I don't even remember how long ago it was. It was probably well over a decade ago. I had this idea in my head. This is when I first started paying attention to corporate power. And I wasn't into politics, but I started to understand the influence of corporations and things like that more. I started to understand it more. And I started to think, because we're always told the free market economy, free market economy. And I started thinking, would these giant corporations and the people connected to them, would they really allow their wealth to depend on the ebb and flow of a free market? And I started to think, just have an awakening, where you just feel something. You may not know how to put it into words, but you just get this sort of aha moment. And I started to think, I don't think they would do that. I would think that they would create the conditions so that they would continue to profit and maintain their power and wealth. And that was the first beginnings of me starting to question the bigger picture. And it just carried from there, because I just don't think we live in a free market economy in America, certainly. I don't think that the power structure would just leave things to chance. Sharon, where are you at, Sharon? County Clare. Shamefully, I've never been to the homeland. I was supposed to go way back. Would have been, let's see, early 2000s, maybe. I was planning a trip to Ireland with my buddy he's also his grandparents are from Ireland, and I can't remember what happened. Something happened where I wasn't able to go, and then I was always playing in bands and whatnot, and had stuff booked, and I never wanted to pass up gigs, so I never planned to go back. What is the nope in response to, Leah? Oh, you mean like would you agree that we don't live in a free market economy? I know I talked about this in a another video. I had this kind of funny thought that I remember one semester I had to in college, I had to go to a community college near where I lived in the summer just for one class. I needed to make up one class or take I make up a 3 credits. So I went to a local community college, not where I was going to school normally. And I took a political science class just because there were only certain classes offered during the summer. And I hated it. I thought it was total BS. I ended up dropping it pretty quickly and taking another class instead. And I think studying political science, if I had a degree in political science, I think that's like saying I have a degree in the Lord of the Rings because I think it's all fake. Captain 1-1, power and status games, some chapters create a hierarchy where older members control younger pledges. That can become psychological conditioning. Obey, conform, protect the group, bury the truth. I agree 100%. And we go through that in different aspects of society, right? Your job, you work for a corporation. Corporations are, you got to work your way up, just like in a secret society, just like in a fraternity, just like in college, just like in high school. You're a freshman, you've got no game. Sophomore year, yeah, not really much game, but if you're like an athlete or you're popular, you might have a little more game. Junior year, you're an upperclassman, you start to get a little cachet, and then senior year, you're the shit, right? Especially if you're an athlete or you're part of a popular group. It's that hierarchy exists in just about any aspect in society. And it is conditioning. I agree 100%. There is them and then there is us. Too much, mom. Hello, welcome. No sense even arguing about politics because our opinions do not matter. The decision makers are all friends. Well, they're at the very least, they're all part of the same network. And even if they personally don't like each other, they protect each other. You'll notice that a reoccurring theme throughout the power structure. And I say this all the time, too much, mom. It's us versus the elites. It's not right versus left. It's not black versus white, gay versus straight, this social group versus this other social group. It's citizens, regular people who don't want to rule the world versus the power structure who thinks it's their right and they're essentially it's their job to rule the world, granted to them because of where they come from. They basically consider the frat Freemasonry more family than their family. I mean, that's true in many ways with a lot of groups. People become more loyal to their group because that group offers them social standing, it offers them oftentimes financial opportunities. Yeah, I would love to get to Ireland. I've heard Ireland's been having some issues just like everywhere else in the world. I don't think anywhere is immune to it. Yeah, I want to leave this earth with my soul also. Let's see. Okay, so Leah, that's all right, good. I just wanted to make sure I understood what your comment was. The good troll. Welcome back. We need more good trolls. Yeah, poli sci professor, and I can't relate to him on anything. He is on lockdown. Once you buy, that's a great example of what I was saying about buying into a system. I've had conversations with people that studied political science, and they know a lot about that, the nuances of politics. But to me, what do you know about? You know about a fake, corrupt system that basically is a lie. It's not what it pretends to be. And so I think the people that really buy into that stuff are in a prison. What does a closed brotherhood teach its members to protect? Character or the institution? Because that is where the darkness can hide, Captain 1-1. I agree. Character is when, what is the saying? Is what you do in the dark when nobody is looking. And nobody is an angel, nobody's perfect. And I think that's how you know a decent person is they're not trying to get away with things just because they can't be caught, right? Think about it. Cheers. Happy Friday, everybody. All right. I think 1-1, that is really what any organization that functions as a protective sort of cocoon for anybody does. It People will try to get away with more if they're in a group where they feel like their own identity is subsumed to the group. All right. All right. Let's see. I'm just going to randomly throw some stuff up. All darkness will be brought to light. It's coming. I feel it. Truth will be revealed. I want to believe that, and I think the more people learn to not be afraid to speak about what they believe, because people have instincts, and society teaches us to suppress our instincts. It's just a reality. It's like when you're a kid. When I was in school as a young kid, they didn't have a diagnosis for ADD. Now, I have my own issues with how certain things are diagnosed, but there's no doubt that there is a set of behaviors and conditions that create ADD. We'll just use that diagnosis, that those behaviors and those struggles there. So whatever those conditions are, they exist rather than saying, oh, this person's ADHD or ADD. But they didn't even have that when I was a kid. And I was extremely spacey and hyperactive. I used to have to go to the school psychologist when I was a little kid because I couldn't sit still. I would get bored in class really easily. I was wild when I was a kid. And sports probably saved my life early in life. And then I would argue that music saved my life later in life. But you're a kid who's sitting in an environment that's created for you that's not congruent with the way some kids need to function. And I think that we have, you have, everybody has a different way of interacting with the world. And I think that if we learn that our natural instincts often don't work in conjunction with this system that we've been shoved into. We can start to create our own lifestyle, our own reality, if you will, while still being able to function in the structure that we have. Because look, I want to be able to survive. I work full time. I still have to do the things that we've all been pushed into. But I think that the awakening aspect of it will start to create this tipping point where more people will start to see that what the reality really is. That's again talking about the matrix, and more people will be able to extricate themselves from it. Yeah, you and me both. Nobody wants to hear it. So you still speak. I do the same thing, but I've learned that some people's minds won't be changed, and that the only thing we can hope for is that ideas spread. Speaking of which, I highly recommend everybody subscribe to the Academy of Ideas on YouTube. That's a great YouTube channel. All right, let's see. All right, I'm just gonna back up on some of these comments. Oh, I think my handler just took one out here. Let's see. Let's see. They can answer to whom, we all will answer to then. Where I plan on going, I do not care. I'm going to do good, be good, and good will come eventually. We all have to put our energy out into the universe by doing what we know is right and what we believe. And that doesn't mean you're an angel and you have to be follow this certain path, but I think the awakened people are the only hope for humanity, in my opinion. Okay, I'm okay with being the weird conspiracy theorist who just so happens to be proven right slowly but surely. Lovely me, I can't tell you how many times that people told me I was crazy, and then 2 or 3 or 4 years later came back to me in their own time and said, "Holy shit, you were right about all those things you said." Happy Friday, Kathleen Bell. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm missing a lot of the comments. My husband was given a K-bar from his frat. What are the chances? Yeah, that's pretty wild. Let's see what this says. I agree. There's no waking those ones up at this point. They either will or won't. Truth is coming. I hope you're right. Let's see. Yeah, well, Captain 1-1. Sorry I missed this. It is the darkness of young men being placed inside of a closed system where approval, status, fear, sex, alcohol, money, silence, and loyalty all get mixed into one dangerous cocktail. See, this is the problem with our tribalism, right? We're all conditioned for survival reasons to want to be part of a group because you get safety in a group, you get protection in a group, and society is evolving, and we need to create systems that don't take advantage of having power. And it's just part of the human condition. People will take advantage. They say power corrupts. And then what? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And sometimes you need checks and balances, and we don't have enough of that anymore. All right. So, my handler, are you still backstage, handler? If you are and you want to post a little poll up, feel free to throw a poll up. Well, I think that things will be brought to light, but it takes more people to wake up. If you look back in history, there were times of major turmoil and major change throughout human history. And I believe that tipping points create a acceleration of ideas. I don't know why that happens. It happens on with social things, it happens with cultural things. They just have a way of catching on because I think they get too strong for the propaganda and all the bullshit we're spoon fed every day to overcome them. Like, I believe that psyops have a shelf life. I think psyops, Pete, that's why they go so hard with psyops now and propaganda because they see that people are awakening. So they're pushing harder and faster with corruption because they know that the awakening is happening. And I think that the awakenings, they will happen. And once the tipping point happens, I think things will accelerate. Philly special, whichever thing you want. Just for fun, we'll throw something up and get people talking. I don't know that I've ever gotten an apology per se. I think that people have just said, "Wow, you were right about this or that or the other thing." All right. Well, let's see. I mean, yeah, if one, you can also th feel free to post anything you want, any comments. If you want to throw up a poll, Philly specials back there. Um, you can throw. I'm just looking tonight. We we've talked about some fuckery in the beginning, and now we're kind of into a more existential thing. But I think it's good to lighten the mood a little bit. Woke up 1984. Yeah, 1984. We're living it now, aren't we? All right. The problem is people, unfortunately, rather than admitting that they were wrong or duped, they tend to double down on bad ideas. The real dark core, the darkest fraternity culture is built on three words: belong, obey, protect. I agree, Captain 1-1. K. Katie Mahoney. I'm what? I'm not sure if that's a response to someone's comment, but welcome in. This is a good one. Which decade had the best music? 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. There's two in there, in my opinion, that had the best music of that list, but let's see, where is that poll? Can I see it up on here? I think well, I don't want to taint people's opinion. Let's see. So 70s is in the lead with 57%. 80s right now at 14, 90s 29, and 2000s 0. Let's see. That's a let's see. We all tend to be nostalgic and like the music from when we were in our teens and our 20s. Gulf Coast Bum, welcome. 1-1, if you can, if you could post that back on stage, that poll. I'm not that fluid with StreamYard yet, so I took it down. 1-1, Captain 1-1 says, I love 80s. It's tough, but grunge was revolutionary. I liked, my musical tastes are most strongly rooted from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, but in the 80s, there's a few different sort of branches of music that I like from the 80s. I like sort of the alternative stuff in the 80s that stemmed out of like Britain, and then it kind of morphed. I like some of the punk rock that came out of the 70s and early 80s. But the 60s had a lot of really groundbreaking music and groundbreaking artists. Like Jimi Hendrix started out in the late 60s, and I think he was one of the most revolutionary artists that's ever lived. And as you guys know, he's from Seattle and had a big impact on a lot of the Seattle bands that made up the grunge scene. The poll, I don't know if the poll disappeared, but I don't know. I can't find it in the chat. But the 90s grunge scene was a huge influence on me. All right, so far the 70s are still in the lead. 80s and 90s are tied, and nobody likes the 2000s because I'll be honest, the 2000s were one of the weakest of any decade, in my opinion. Let's see. I I like different eras for different reasons. For like really um, revolutionary kind of music, I think the 60s were very revolutionary. The 90s grunge scene was heavily influenced by the punk scene from like the 70s and early 80s. So the 90s music was definitely derivative of some other styles, like the hard rock, prog rock stuff influenced the grunge scene. The punk stuff influenced the grunge scene. Artists like Jimi Hendrix were heavily influenced by the blues guys from the 40s and 50s. And he started to branch into more of a psychedelic type of thing. Then you have 80s, which was spawning out of some of the sort of not disco, but some of like the more dance based music, a lot of those 80s bands. And then that kind of morphed into the alternative, like The Cure and The Smiths and some of these other darker bands that also influenced the 90s. All right, let's see what we got in the chat here. I mean, between the 80s and 90s, I probably musically was more influenced by the 90s, but I do like some of those 80s bands like The Cure, REM. It's a huge band. I love REM. I wasn't a huge Smiths fan, but I like their music. Um, yeah, the 60s, Too Much Mom. I agree with you. The 60s allowed R&B to break through on the radio. That was a big turning point for music. Yeah, like Motown was really influential in the late 60s and early 70s. Let's see. I don't know what happened to the poll. Captain 1-1, is the poll still backstage or was it taken down? All right. And guys, you already probably know I'm not that fluid with StreamYard yet with doing live streams, but I'm gonna get better as I do more. Philly Special, my handler says, anyone have an idea for a poll they would like me to put up? Throw it in there, everybody. That's what we're doing tonight. We're going full open conversation. Let's see. Alice in Chains is one of my favorite bands of all time. I would even argue that I like Alice in Chains better than Nirvana, but they were both bands that I love. They were both really influential to me. But hey, who we got here? Green Eclectic Mama, Blog 8. Good to see you. I think Lane Staley's voice was, I mean, so was Kurt Cobain's, but if I had to pick between two vocal styles, I would pick Lane Staley over Kurt Cobain, even though I think Kurt Cobain was a groundbreaking songwriter. I think Alice in Chains they just had something about them that I don't know. It's hard to explain because you think about it, Nirvana's lyrics, contrary to what a lot of people seem to think, if you really look at the lyrics from Nirvana, they weren't that dark. They were just quirky and weird. Whereas Alice in Chains was very dark music. I tend to like a lot of dark music with darker themes. I don't know what happened with the poll in the chat, guys. I apologize. I don't know if it got pulled down or what happened. All right, my handler is going to cause trouble, I'm sure. Let's see. I loved Soundgarden also. Um, I, I loved Chris Cornell's musical, just everything. His voice, his songwriting was incredible. His guitar style was extremely unique. If you could have any pet, what would you choose? A dragon, a robot, a dinosaur, or a monkey? Let's see. That's a good one. While you guys discuss that poll, I have to go get my rooster off the roof. I'll be right back. It looks like Monkey is, it's tied with Dragon. Yeah, I don't know. That would be a tough one. I think Monkey would be a little easier to manage, but they'll still rip your face off. Let's see. Soundgarden, I agree. Lovely Me. Soundgarden was, there's something about Soundgarden. My handler thinks I would pick a robot, but that is patently false. Although they would always do what you tell them to. Alice in Chains. Let's see. My younger son is playing Alice in Chains on his guitar for me. What song is he playing? Nutshell? That's a pretty easy one to play on acoustic guitar. I, I play some grunge music when I play gigs. I've been in bands that played multiple Nirvana songs, um, some Alice in Chains stuff, some other stuff, Screaming Trees. I have to be honest though, any musicians out there will know what I'm talking about. Of those three bands, Alice in Chains, Nirvana, and Soundgarden, hands down, there's not even an argument. Soundgarden's music is way more advanced musically. Any musician in the chat, let me know if you agree. Off time signatures, funkier, quirkier chords, plus Chris Cornell's voice. You can't cover that. Rooster, yeah, that's a great song. Yeah, good one. Burrow down Intel. If I didn't think the robot would turn against me, I'd choose that one. Yeah, we're gonna all be robots one day anyways. I won't need a pet robot. Spoon Man, that's another great song. Let's see. Oh, the YouTube channel, guys, that I recommended was Academy of Ideas. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Everybody should subscribe to that. Someone's gonna wait, who said that? I'll name my dragon Elliot. Gulf Coast Bum. What would you guys name your dragon? That should be the next poll. And you just answer it in the chat. I'll tell you, all right, you guys are throwing it out there. I'll tell you. I like Fleetwood Mac too a lot. I think as far as like bands from that era, they're about as good as it gets. Let's see. My favorite Soundgarden song, that's a tough one. I tend to like deep cuts, or if not deep cuts, ones that are maybe not their biggest hit. I like a lot of Soundgarden stuff, but I think their Super Unknown album was the perfect mix of dark, but also it was polished as well. And Fell on Black Days, that's one of my favorite Soundgarden songs just because it's pretty accessible. It's got a great riff and the lyrics are phenomenal. My Wave is kind of a raw song, um, not super complex, but some cool time changes, time signature changes. Keep it off my wave, my wave. That's one of my favorite Soundgarden songs. I like a lot of Soundgarden stuff. I like Tool also. Lovely Me. I think Danny Carey's one of the best drummers that's ever walked on planet Earth. When Tool first became popular, they were on heavy rotation on MTV. I mean, you guys know if you from that era, it was just constantly Tool was on rotation. I like Tool a lot. I was never a huge Primus fan. Lovely me. I'm familiar with their music, but I was never a massive Primus fan or anything like that. I saw Les Claypool sit in with a band at New Orleans Jazz Fest back in the day. Well, of course, Pearl Jam is arguably the now certainly the biggest band that ever came out of Seattle as far as their global scope. I love Pearl Jam. I've seen them live. I mean, of course, people are throwing up the standards like Zeppelin. I mean, every who doesn't like Zeppelin? John Bonham, one of the greatest drummers of all time, just one a super groundbreaking band. Let's see. I like a lot of music. I mean, a lot. It's been a huge part of my life. So I like a really, really, really broad scope of music. I mean, I was in funk bands, I was in grunge cover bands, I've played blues, I've played little bit of jazz, I played straight up classic rock. I've played a lot of different types of music, so I like a lot of music. All right, if you had to be trapped in a movie for a year, which one would it be? This should be good. Yeah, Buckethead is very, unique guitar player. One night, if you guys want, because you guys, anybody that knows me from other streams knows that I love talking about music. Um, let's see. Can I remember Candlebox, Brandy J. I remember them. I used to like Candlebox. I was really into that 90s music. Lost Boys, good call. Dawn Caps, good to see you. I'm terrible at catching all the comments in the chat. And my handler, I don't know what my handler's doing backstage, but I'm relying on my handler here. You guys don't want me to play. It would be hard for me to play on here because I sing loud and it would be very probably annoying for the people around me. Let's see. Trapped in a movie. My favorite is A Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm sure it could spiral down all the trees and explore. I don't know what movie I don't know if I could tolerate any movie for that long. I'll think about it though. Let's see. If you guys hang in there with me, I promise one Friday night I'll play a few songs for you. I'm not shy about playing and stuff. I don't like to impose myself onto people when it comes to music, that is. I'm imposing myself on you guys right now. I've been off from gigging for over 2 months. I start up soon again. I've been rusty. I haven't had that much time to practice music. Let's see. I'm just scanning here. Secret Life of Pets. My handler is a shit stir. I like that though. Yeah, right. Exactly. Floss, McShugel, rhyming rambles. I agree. Any movie for that long, it would probably become torture. It'd be like the Chinese water torture if you had to watch the same movie over and over for a year. Too much mom. Let me see if I missed an earlier comment. I'm not shy about playing, guys, just so you know. Just I wouldn't want to half-ass it. So give me a couple of weeks and then I promise we'll do a Friday night anything goes stream because you guys know I like talking about a lot of different stuff. And we need to have some fun too, aside from talking about all the fuckery in the world. The way we were, that's a good one. Jumper, Dr. Doolittle. I can speak to animals, by the way, just so you guys know. Jumper, I think I know the movie you're talking about. Inception, right? Inception is like our lives. And who said Jumper? The Breakfast Club. That's one I can relate to. Gulf Coast Bum. It's my era. That was what, the Brat Pack? The early stages of the Brat Pack. Who remembers the Brat Pack in the chat? Burrow down Intel. I've been playing music as a side job for decades, and I go through stages where I'm really busy playing on the weekends and then sometimes not as busy. It fluctuates because I have a full-time job, so a lot of it depends on how busy I am with other stuff. Let's see. I have one of my family members joke and call me Dr. Doolittle because I'm like an animal whisperer. So my there you go. My handler undermining me again. Shame on you, Philly Special. Let's see. By the way, sweet Melissa, the Allman Brothers is one of my all-time favorite bands. Highly influential. Let's see. Oh, John. Okay, this is what I was. St. Elmo's Fire. That was the Brat Pack. Yep, good call there, Dawn Caps. Burrow down Intel, partly because of the thrill of. I'm honest though, that would get me in a lot of trouble really fast. I could imagine. My handler decided to create this narrative that I don't like animals. I'm not exactly sure where that comes from, but it's okay. People need to believe what they need to believe. Let's see. There's been very few animals that didn't like me. Sometimes like dogs can be nervous and if, you know, you approach them in a certain way, they get spooked by you. Let's see here. All right, let's see. What time we got here, chat? It's 5:30. We'll go for a while longer. I mean, I'll go as long as you guys want. I just know that there are other streams starting. People have to jump. That's cool. It's funny, there's certain times of the year that I get reflective and I'll listen to certain types of music. Typically in the early fall, late summer, and like early spring, because where I live, those tend to be like the off seasons where it's quieter. I think I get into different types of music. I start to flashback and listen to things like music takes you back. Anybody a Beck fan? We got any Beck fans in the chat? Beck, yeah, Beck's got some good stuff. Oh, I don't know. I'm missing the comments. Here we go. Yeah, I really got into Beck's really early stuff, like AM Gold and Odelay, and I was a pretty big Beck fan back in the day. I haven't followed his new music as much. Mule Variations. Oh no, Mule Variations. That's Tom Waits. Any Tom Waits fans in the chat? Mutations. That's the one, the Beck one. Which superpower would you choose? Flight, super speed, invisibility, telepathy. I don't know. I think that's a tough one. I don't know if I'd want telepathy, to be honest. Um, invisibility, it would either be for me invisibility or flight. Dawn Cap says, my husband is a musician. He loves Beck, but his favorite band is Bad Company. Paul Rogers. Yeah, Paul Rogers is one of my favorite singers. All right, I'm gonna call after this poll. I'm gonna call on my handler to do a poll, another poll. Philly Special, when you're ready to take this down, I'll throw up another poll. Which who is do you think the best rock singer of all time? And here's who I'm going to put. And then I'll tell you guys what I think afterwards. Now, we might not be able to fit all of them in there, but here, I'm going to write down who I think are some of the best rock singers of all time. I know who I think my number one is. Now, this might not necessarily be your favorite band. Just who do you think was the best rock singer? All right. You guys, I'm going to tell you some names and then you guys tell me who you think might be added to the list because we might not be able to do it in a poll, but All right, I think I got it. First, I'm going to tell you the names that I think are in the list of the top rock singers of all time. Now, again, just to be clear, I'm not saying necessarily my favorite bands, but just talking about singers. Who, so I'm talking all time. I think for starters, I would say I'm not giving them an order of who I think. I'm just telling you the names. Robert Plant, Paul Rogers, Freddie Mercury, Chris Cornell, and Jeff Buckley. And I'm purely talking about the best singers. And then afterwards, I'll tell you who I think the best rock singer of all time is. So Robert Plant, Paul Rogers from Bad Company, Freddie Mercury, Queen, Chris Cornell, Soundgarden, and Jeff Buckley. Everybody knows Robert Plant was Zeppelin. So we got, well, Ann Wilson is up there for sure. What's up, E Potty? Welcome. Welcome in. Ann Wilson, total badass singer. Amy Lee, right? That's from I know the band you're talking about. Let's see. There are others that I could throw into that mix, obviously, but I'm thinking about that's just the ones that come to mind when I think the greatest rock singers of all time. And then you can get into like the best R&B singers and so on and so forth. It's Evanescence. That's right. E-Potty is in the tip of my tongue. There is a lot. I mean, there are a lot of amazing singers. But for people who don't know, Jeff Buckley, Robert Plant, and Chris Cornell were huge fans of Jeff Buckley. I mean, for me, this one is an easy one. Let's see. I'm seeing Chris Cornell. I'm seeing Janis Joplin. I'm seeing, um, let's see. I mean, there are bands that I like more than Led Zeppelin, but I wouldn't put I I've listened to Alice in Chains probably more than I have Led Zeppelin, but as far as just iconic, amazing rock singers, I see Floss McShugel rhyming rambles. It's Chris Cornell and Mike Patton. It's hard sometimes to pick one, right? In any kind of order. If you haven't listened to Jeff Buckley, definitely listen to Jeff Buckley. See, now Steven Tyler, from Aerosmith's amazing, but you could argue he was basically a combination of the Beatles and Zeppelin. Whereas I don't know, there's too many people who can pin down who exactly Chris Cornell sounds like. Although I'm sure there are bands that you could point to. All right. So far, Robert Plant 20%, Freddie Mercury 60, Chris Cornell 20%. I mean, you have Journey. Steve Perry from Journey was an amazing singer. I would say my favorite is I would put Freddie Mercury at the top of the list of the greatest rock singers of all time. Then I would probably go Jeff Buckley, Chris Cornell, Robert Plant, and then Paul Rogers of that list. That's probably how I would stack it up. But I would put Freddie well above, easily at the top. I would put, I mean, that one for me personally is not even I don't even have to think for a second about it. Freddie Mercury was on a whole other level of talent. Just, and so was Jeff Buckley. Jeff Buckley is just next level shit, man. So was Chris Cornell. Next level shit. I mean, there's so many. We could literally have a list of 100 people and debate that list. All right. All right. So guys, it's 5:41 my time. I'll go till around 6 my time. So 8 Eastern time, and you guys can ditch when you need to get where you got to go and go check out other streams and whatnot. Look, Lane Staley is one of my favorites as far as just amazing singer and one of my favorite bands, but I'm looking at the whole pantheon of great singers. And E Potty says Freddie Mercury may still be alive. I heard Axl Rose is definitely one of the great rock singers of all time, for sure. Well, I'm burrow down intel. I appreciate that, but I like I know people watch other streams and stuff like that, so I want them. I definitely want people to be able to break out. Yeah, Freddie Mercury was, even if like I wouldn't say Queen is my favorite band, but as far as just mind-blowing singers, have you guys ever watched where you can listen to isolated vocals? Like you can find them on YouTube where you find somebody and then they just isolate the vocal. Freddie Mercury was before there was no auto tune when all these singers were doing their thing, and just the isolated vocals for people like Chris Cornell, Freddie Mercury, Jeff Buckley, all these guys is just incredible. So, E Potty, why do you think Freddie Mercury may still be alive? Is he hanging out with Jim Morrison? Because that's one that you hear a lot, and Elvis, right? It's people that say Elvis is alive, or he didn't die when they said he did. Nothing would surprise me though at all. Eddie and the Cruisers. I remember Eddie and the Cruisers. What was the band? Well, that was that song on the dark side, right? And that was what was it? The Beaver Brown Band. What was the name of the band that actually did the song from Eddie and the Cruisers? I can't remember. Sweet Melissa said her daughter can sing just like Janis Joplin. That's no easy task. I think Chris Stapleton is one of the best singers alive today. Prince was definitely up there. I would put Prince as one of the greatest artists of all time. Like straight up greatest artists of all time. I mean, I grew up with Prince's early stuff. Let's see. It's funny. Is that wishful is Gulf Burrow Down Intel says, is that wishful thinking, E Potty? Sebastian Bach. All right, let me just throw this up for a second. Gulf Coast Bum says, I would choose Jeff Tate, Sebastian Bach, Lane Staley, Chris Cornell, and Rick Springfield. I used to run into Sebastian Bach all the time, regularly. I worked in Red Bank, New Jersey for a while, and I used to go out after work because it's a little bustling little town near the Jersey Shore, and Sebastian Bach lived, I think, in Red Bank or right near there, and I'd see him all the time. I many times I saw him in Red Bank. He was kicking around, and he used to go out to some of the places I used to go to. Open mind perspective. What's up? Open mind perspectives. Huey Lewis. You must have mistyped that. Huey Louie. Yeah, Huey Lewis was, huge back in the day. I mean, David Bowie's kind of in the same realm as Prince, just amazing artists. Let's see. On the Dark Side was originally quoted by John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. Yep, that's it. I remember the movie. Uh-oh, I froze. I'm not free. I'm not still frozen, am I? I'm not frozen on my end. So let me just see. I'll close some windows. That might help. Sometimes you have too many windows open. It gets a little squirrely. I mean, we could go on all night with music stuff. All right, I'm gonna do one. Am I unfrozen, guys? Give me a one in the chat if I'm unfrozen. Okay, good. I'm not frozen. All right, I'm gonna throw one last one out there for everybody. One last little point of discussion. So we got, wow, Robert Plant at 55%, Freddie at 27, Chris Cornell at 18. I don't know how many people actually voted on this poll because a lot of people just posted it in the chat. Okay, so let's think about this. What name? I know this is going to be a hard one. What was your favorite concert? What you think was the best concert that you ever saw? Favorite or best, whatever, however you want to put it. You could throw it in the chat. We'll throw some of them on screen. Let's see. Favorite concert. And then we'll talk about it. All right. So now we're on to what was your favorite or what was the best concert? So I got Prince, um, Guns N' Roses. I never saw Guns N' Roses. I liked Guns N' Roses though. Some some of the stuff I don't really know, but let's see. Tool, Metallica, close second. Yeah, Tool I heard is amazing live. I never saw them. I liked Tool. I wasn't the hugest fan of Tool, but I like their music. Let's see. Some of these, let's see. Mushroom Head. Cult of Luna. Buckethead, Primus, Leonard Skinner. There, I like Leonard Skinner. They were, I think, Even though they were a huge band, I think they were, believe it or not, even maybe underrated. Def Leppard is a great band. I know I like Def Leppard. Wasn't one of my favorite bands, but I certainly grew up their music. ELO. Let's see. Was there a poll? Did a poll go up on this? I didn't see it in the chat. While you guys are still digging into their favorite concert, Meatloaf at the Gorge. I've heard the Gorge is awesome. The Gorge in George. No, you didn't have to do a poll, Philly. I was just saying I didn't know because some of the comments in there, I didn't know if there was a poll up in the chat before. Insane Clown Posse was wicked. I have an original flyer framed for Woodstock. Wow, that's badass. Can you imagine being at Woodstock? It was a little before my time, so, but I've seen the movie a million times. All right, so the first real concert that I went to, I was 15, and my boss got tickets to see Bob Dylan, backed by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers at Madison Square Garden. That was my first real concert. But I would have to say my favorite. Here, let me just post that real quick. Too Much Mom. I'm old. I was in New York City Club when the Village People did a concert. Same thing with Grace Jones in the Paris Club. These were very small venues. I'm older than a lot of people usually think I am for some reason, but I hung out a lot in New York City. I lived, I'm from New Jersey, originally from Brooklyn, but grew up in Jersey and spent a lot of time hanging out in Manhattan. A lot. And I worked at a famous music club in New York and I saw some great live music, sometimes just random stuff in small clubs. Um, let's see. Doobie, I see Ipati's throwing down. He said Doobie Brothers. I like the Doobie Brothers. Styx was my first at 18. I remember Styx. I love Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, by the way. It's one of my favorite bands. I love Bob Dylan's early stuff. Huge, huge Dylan fan. All right. Sharon Kingston, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Please come back. It's good to have you. We'll see you soon. I'm going to do another stream. I may do one tomorrow, which I'll post it early in the day if I'm going to do one tomorrow. If not tomorrow, definitely Sunday. Corn. What's up, Mandy Gilliland? I probably pronounced that wrong. All right, so I've seen a lot of really good concerts, but I'm not going to tell you which one was my favorite. I'll just tell you two concert stories. Okay, who's from North Jersey? I lived in North Jersey for many, many years. Too much, Mom. So I know it very well. All right, so real before I forget, before I lose the thread, I won't go in any chronological order or anything, but several years ago, I can't even remember how long ago. You guys will probably know when the tour was. I got tickets to see Pearl Jam in Denver. And, I'm a big Pearl Jam fan. And one of my buddies from back east was going to be out in Denver for business. So we got tickets, we made plans to go to the show. And I didn't know this, but it was the anniversary, it was like the 30-year anniversary maybe of their very first show ever. I think it was their 30-year anniversary of their very first show they ever did as a band. And I didn't know it going into the show. They said it, during the show. And you have a cutoff. You have like the time that the venue gives for, or the local ordinances or whatever to to stop, and then you get fined if you continue. Well, Eddie Vedder was, he drinks wine from a bottle while he's playing. Basically, he's swinging on a bottle, and he had people go into the audience throughout the crowd and pass out wine bottles. And they basically blew the curfew and they just kept playing and took the fines that they did. And it was a phenomenal show because they were loose. They were, sometimes a band might not be as tight, but the spirit and the energy is there, and they just crushed it. And they one of the songs they often close with Baba O'Reilly, but they played Mother by Pink Floyd, which is Pink Floyd, by the way, is one of my all-time favorite bands. And I think, I have many, many, many really favorite bands. Hard to pick one, but Pink Floyd is right up at the top of the list. And they played Mother, and it's one of my favorite songs, and it was just off the chain just to see that live and the energy that was going on. Yeah, Pink Floyd's freaking one of my almost the very top of the list for me. You know, I just think there there was never a yeah, there's been many bands influenced by them, but they were something else, man. Yeah, Mother is one of my all-time favorite Pink Floyd songs, period. It's just amazing. And the simple guitar solo in Mother is one of my favorite guitar solos of all time. Roger Waters is a genius, straight up genius. And all right, so because I could talk about this kind of shit all night, but another show that I saw that was incredible, and you have to understand the context of it, was Bruce Springsteen at Madison Square Garden on their reunion tour. So they hadn't played together in like 18 years, the E Street Band with Bruce Springsteen. And they had that reunion tour, and they played at Madison Square Garden. And I happened to be home visiting from Colorado and went with some family members and some friends. And they played for 4 hours. And it was amazing, incredible live show. Absolutely amazing. David, just by the way, E-Potty on this, David Gilmour is my number one favorite. Him and Jimi Hendrix are tied for my two favorite guitar players of all time. It's hard to, to pick one, but David Gilmour and Jimi Hendrix I'd put at a tie for first. I don't like the what Bruce has become. I'll say that. But I grew up right down the street from where he's from and was heavily influenced by his music. Phoenix Rising, yeah. I posted in the community section, and then I scheduled the live earlier today. Um, I forgot to schedule it on YouTube sooner, so I apologize. But I'll be doing I'll definitely do another live this weekend, and I'll announce it earlier in the day, either tomorrow, or if I'm going to do Sunday earlier in the day, I'll announce it tomorrow as well. Look, the thing about artists is I there's a lot of artists that I may not like them as a person, but I like their music. Yes, Ipati, I saw that series. I enjoyed it thoroughly. For you guys who don't know, Steven Van Zandt is in the E Street Band, Little Steven, and he was on The Sopranos. He played, um, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Silvio on The Sopranos, and they did like a spin-off where he was a mobster that goes into witness protection, and he goes to Lillehammer, Norway. It's actually a really good series. Oh man, people are going off on Bruce. Bruce was just very commercial, right? See, here's the thing. I'm gonna, for those who are not maybe that familiar with Bruce, he his first few albums were nothing like what he became later. Like literally nothing at all like that. They were completely different. Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey was his first album. Nothing like any of his other music. The Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle was his second album. Very sort of soul, Van Morrison-esque, sort of jazzy, very New York influenced. And then, Darkness on the Edge of Town. Well, actually, I think Born to Run came after that. And then Darkness on the Edge of Town. Like his early stuff he wasn't going with the whole blue collar guy angle. He was more like street poet, kind of, you know, almost like Tom Waits esque in some ways. It's lovely me. I try in the past. I tried to turn on the notifications, and I had glitches. You guys might know I had problems with StreamYard connecting to my YouTube in the past, and I think I got it sorted out. Yeah, I agree about Too Much Mom about that. And look, I haven't liked any of his music in a long time, honestly. And I don't like the preachiness that he kind of evolved into. All right, so let's see. Um, I agree with this, Phoenix. Um, yeah, I was when I was a little kid, I was obsessed with Kiss because I liked the characters. And when you're a kid, that's the hook, right? Um, my handler is very fond of Bruce Springsteen. I think she has a crush on him. She just doesn't want him. She's struggling with it. She's wrestling with it deep down inside. All right. Let's see here. I'll keep going for a few more minutes, guys, because I can ramble about anything. And if you've got to dip out, I'll see you on the next one. Thank you, Kathleen Bell. And for any of you guys that used to watch when we would do on Devil's Advocates, like sometimes we would go off. I do that a lot, by the way, and I could talk about a lot of different things. And that's what I want this channel to be. I don't want to just talk about only big picture things. I want it to be, not to sound corny, but build a community where we can talk about different topics, but we also can talk about the big picture as well. I'll tell you guys something to Phoenix Rising's point here. Um, I tend to resist if a band comes out and they blow up and everybody's talking about them, they're the new big thing. I tend to resist at first and I wait until all the hoopla dies down and then I'll check them out. So I can do it sort of after things settle down and make my own decisions about bands. All right, my handler wants to run with this narrative that I don't like animals, so we'll just go with it. Uh, that I'm a grouch who doesn't like animals and wants a robot as a pet. So we can run with that. I mean, people think I work for the CIA. I just accepted that. So I'm willing to run with that narrative. Yeah, I like the Eagles. Tam Lamb, by the way, good to see you. They had amazing harmonies. They were a powerhouse band. There's no denying it, whether even if you may not like their music, but oh yeah, Phoenix the 90s has got a lot of banger music. Really good stuff. But music's such a big part of my life that I highly recommend if you haven't already, check out Tom Waits if you want to see an artist who evolved a lot over the years, who's considered one of the great American songwriters. His voice might not be for everyone though, but let's see. I mean, I'm with you there. I resent preachy musicians. I totally agree with that. I have mixed feelings about people using their influence on certain issues when I know that those issues, they're really, these musicians don't realize they're being co opted by evil forces. Because let's be honest, a lot of these musicians, they've never had a regular job and they're sheltered in a certain way. Yes, they're wealthy, they travel around the world, but when it comes to the big picture, they get co-opted by powerful interests and don't often know they're being co-opted. Again, to E Potty's point, I if someone's music is amazing, I heard Van Morrison is a total dick, but he was a genius. I think Into the Mystic is one of the greatest songs ever written. Let's see. All right, so I want to comment on the point about people using their position. These people get shit on if they don't give their opinion about what's going on, people shit on them. Oh, you're not speaking out. And if they do, they get shit on. Joe Rogan was getting shit on because he wasn't speaking out about certain things. Oh, he sold out, whatever. And then if he does, oh, who does he think he is giving his opinion? So I would imagine that in that position, you're going to get shit on no matter what you do. I love The Who. They're one of my all-time favorite bands, E Potty. And I love Roger Daltrey. And Philly Special, she's talking about the Eagles football team because, Philly. Um, let's see. I've heard of Blue October, but I don't know if I might know their music and just not know the name connected to it. Let's see. Jefferson Starship, Miracles. I mean, I'm a huge fan of a lot of older music. I love Otis Redding. I love Marvin Gaye. I love a lot of the old Motown stuff. I love a lot of the old blues. I was a huge fan of blues. I still am. I just don't listen to it as much as I used to. Blues guitarists, I absolutely love. I like a lot of the sort of fusion funk guitarists. All right. All right. We still have some people hanging out. Sean Marie, how are you? Good to see you. Let's see. I still sees a lot of stuff going on about music. The problem is I have so many varied musical tastes, and it just depends on. I go through stages. One of my favorite artists of all time is Jackson Brown. His really early stuff. I would say that it's hard to pick one, but if I had to pick my favorite somber album of all time, and if you haven't heard it, I highly, highly, highly recommend it, is Late for the Sky by Jackson Brown. It's one of his early albums. I think it's considered one of the greatest albums ever made, but it's definitely one of my favorite. The thing about music is there's so many great artists and they're still out there. So all these artists that maybe from the 40s or 50s or 60s, 70s, 80s, they're still out there to discover. All right. So let's see here. Jackson Brown is very influential. Yeah, I've heard High Ren. I know that. I saw that. I know that video. I think that's the one you're talking about. The guy. It's kind of like performance art. The Pretender's a great song. I'm a massive Jackson Brown fan, so I know all his music. All right, hold on. I've neglected to mention one of the my all-time favorite bands. I think one of the greatest bands that's ever existed, The Police. One of the greatest bands of all time, in my opinion. Oh, my handler is stirring some shit up. When I had my 30-year high school reunion, when I went back east, there were a couple of, guys that I went to school with who were also working musicians. And we actually performed we put together a little trio and we performed at our 30-year high school reunion. We basically just went back and forth, like emailing and texting songs, and we would each learn, and then we had one rehearsal the day of the reunion, and then we played our 30-year reunion. It was fun. Yeah, we could talk about music all night. Yeah, Daryl Hannah was married to Jackson Brown, and yeah, I don't know. I'll look up that band Blue October because the name sounds familiar. David Crosby? No way. She's not married. That would be insane if she was married to David Crosby. Or Neil Young? That's crazy. I like Neil Young too. He's another one though. I don't like people that are I mean, he's like preaching like he's some holier than thou guy, and then he sells his music catalog to one of the big banks for like 500 million. All right. I don't know if I have a favorite song. I could tell you a few songs that I love. Um, Late for the Sky by Jackson Brown is up there. Into the Mystic by Van Morrison is up there. Um, God, A Change is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. That's up there. Um, let's see. There's a lot. God, there's a lot. One night we can talk about that. We should do a whole segment where we just talk about our favorite songs. So we'll talk about the insanity that's taking over our world, and then we'll talk about our favorite song. Yeah, Van Morrison is one of my favorites. Into the Mystic is right up there. Comfortably Numb is up there. Mother by Pink Floyd is one of my all-time favorite songs. Um, God, I have a lot. There's a lot. But like I was saying earlier, Chris Stapleton, I think, is one of the best singers alive right now. And I don't like commercial country per se, but Chris Stapleton is almost like a mix between rock and old school country. There's so many great bands, so much great music. Sam Cooke was the next level. You know, a song that I learned to play recently was Chris Stapleton's Starting Over. That song, guys, you guys check that one out if you don't know it. All right. Well, look, guys, it's about a quarter after 6 my time. I'm gonna wrap it up, so we can all move on to our next phase of the evening. Have a great Friday. Thank you to everybody for coming. Please like and subscribe and share. Help me grow the channel. Let's build a little community here. And of course, shout out to the Devil's Advocates, to Birdie Bombshells, the Custody Queens off the clock, and all the true crime nerds out there. And I I'm going to try and see if I can do a stream tomorrow, same time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, but I'll post early in the day if I'm going to do it tomorrow or Sunday. So thank you to everybody. I really appreciate you guys. And we'll see you guys very soon. I'll catch up with you. Have a great night. Onward and upward.